Alright, so I feel like I got my hands on the Nintendo Switch, and I've had my hands on the PS Vita for a while now. So of course, well, not really of course, kind of arbitrary comparing them, but regardless, I'm going to be comparing the PS Vita and Nintendo Switch, which is the better system. And now, some of you may be thinking, why compare the two? Well, in reality, they have a lot of similarities. Not only are they both handheld systems, but they're also sold to be play-at-home consoles, in the sense that one can be used to play as a console, whereas the other can play console games on it. But regardless, let's get to the criteria. And the criteria are innovation, control, performance and specs, software, and ease of use. Now before we start this thing off, it may seem obvious, but in reality, this was a close race because I was trying to compare them as unbiased as possible. Fanboys, you may not like this video, and some fanboys may love this video, but regardless, I'm going to be comparing these two as unbiased as possible. So, let's begin. Alright, let's start off with innovation, and in this case, let's start off with Sony. The PS Vita is a carbon copy of what the PSP is, but with everything about it cranked up to 11. So while it is rather impressive for a handheld, it does nothing to really break new ground. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the Switch. While the technology of tablets and connecting a handheld up to a television through cables is nothing new, the idea of a fully functional hybrid system definitely is. It's equal parts a sit-at-home console and a handheld system. It can be played on an HD TV and taken outside completely offline since the system itself has a built-in HD touchscreen. And it can act as a second screen with detachable motion controllers. In all honesty, it's the first of its kind and a true marvel of console design. So, the clear winner here is obviously Nintendo Switch. Control. Alright, let's talk about the Switch. With the Switch, you are given multiple ways to use the Joy-Cons. You can use the Joy-Con grip to make it a full-fledged gamepad. You can use each Joy-Con separately, like the Wii and Nunchuck, only without the terrible wire connecting them. Or you can play multiplayer with each Joy-Con in the hands of each player. Ultimately giving the user many options to choose from, which is great, until you realize that every possible configuration is not as great as you'd like it to be. Don't get me wrong, the controllers do not feel bad at all, but they are not ideal, and it's mostly due to the buttons. Not only does the button layout cause it to feel cramped, for example the minus button, but the buttons themselves are also very flawed. I do love the clicky tactile feedback of all the buttons, but the biggest gripes I have are how small the triggers are, and the fact that they went from a D-pad to directional face buttons. For some people, this is not an issue, but for a certain demographic like fighting game fans, this is not ideal. Now, let's move on to the Vita. As stated before, it took everything from the past attempt, the PSP, and made it better. The face buttons, while are a little smaller, feel far more comfortable. The triggers feel good, the button placement is good, the feel of the overall system is nice in the hands, unlike the bulky Switch. The thumbsticks feel nicer and don't require as much travel as the Switch. But most importantly, the D-pad is one of the best on a handheld by far. Not only that, but it has two touchscreens compared to the Switch's one. And okay, in reality, this really doesn't matter. I mean, it's two touchscreens, who really cares? Only a few games use it, but games like Tearaway use it wonderfully. Now, a saving grace for the Switch is the ability to use a Pro controller, but the Vita counters this with the ability to use a PS4 controller on the system for share play. And in this case, let's just be honest, the DualShock 4 is a far better control pad than any of the ones I just mentioned. Yes, even better than the Pro controller. So yeah, with the great scheme on the Vita itself and the ability to use this, control goes to Vita. It squeaks by, but the PS Vita wins here. Performance and specs. Alright, in this case, it's winner's ball. Vita here is a fantastic piece of hardware for a handheld. Its graphic capabilities are somewhere in the range between a PS2 and a PS3, and it can stream PS4 games with minor hiccups. The sound of the system is amazing, and honestly the best at the time of its release. But the best part about the system is its screen. Now, while the newer model does sport a great LCD screen, the original Vita was the owner of a beautiful OLED screen. It made color pop, the clarity was perfect. Having said that though, the Switch kicks the Vita's ass in every other department. Its graphical capabilities have proven to be between the PS3 and PS4. The console can display natively at 1080p on a TV, the audio is amazing, the stereo speakers are loud and provide full range sound, and the screen, even for an LCD, is no slouch, providing a rich and colorful HD experience. Let me put it to you this way, the Vita rocks a 960 by 544 resolution screen, whereas the Switch rocks a 720p screen. So yeah, the Switch wins. No contest again. Software. Now, in this case, I can easily point out the amazing games and features the Vita currently has, and compare them to the very barren, brand new Switch. But let's have a fair fight here. Switch is brand new, and hasn't had enough time to flourish. So let's compare the launch date titles. And well, here is where it gets interesting. With the Vita, we got And yeah, now seeing that whole list laid out, that is one hell of a launch day lineup. I mean, that's how you get people excited for your console. So, let's move on. Let's see the Switch. And that's it. Ooh. Look, now some of you be thinking, it has Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, this is the clear winner, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I get, and I love this game too. But, one amazing game does not compare to a bunch of great games. Look, this is the flagship title. Don't get me wrong, this is the flagship title for the Switch. But with the Vita, you had a huge collection of fantastic games at launch. On top of that, even if we did try to compare the systems in the future, the Vita has had plenty of amazing games to come out in recent years. And even though many believe the Vita to be dead, the fan base is still really strong, and many great games are still being released for this down but not out system. Also, it has PS1 classics. Too many great games to forget about here. Now, hopefully Nintendo makes good on its whole promise that the Virtual Console will be fantastic on the Switch, but if it's anything like the Wii U's and the 3DS's, we're in for some disappointment. So, right now, the PS Vita wins. Ease of use. Alright, this may very well be the most important aspect of each system, its portability and ease of use. But let's face it, handhelds are meant to keep us occupied out in the frantic real world. So any sign of difficulty would just turn any gamer off completely. And well, in this case, both do an amazing job on this front. Let's start off with the Switch. The Nintendo Switch, while may seem massive compared to something perfectly sized as the Game Boy Advance, fits in nicely with the tablet era we're currently going through. So while it won't fit in your pocket, it will fit nicely in a bag or a backpack, or in a snug carrying case. Besides that, the user interface is very simplistic and you can start up the game nearly instantaneously. Also, if you decide to put it in sleep mode, or take it out of sleep mode, it's like the system doesn't even miss a beat. And the same can be said about the Vita. So let's move on to that. The Vita, in contrast, can easily fit in your pocket, and similarly, the UI is pretty straightforward and very easy to operate. Both systems have a very similar battery life, 3 to 6 hours, and both use small game carts to run games physically, or you can install games on the hardware memory itself. Although the Switch can use any regular microSD, unlike the stupidly overpriced proprietary ones that the Vita uses. Bottom line, as handhelds go, they're pretty equally on par. I mean, the Vita is far more portable, and the Switch has a lot more easier and cheaper options for, expendable memory. So yeah, this is going to be a tough call, but I'm going to have to break the tie with something that's very important about them. And that's, of course, how it performs at home. And yeah, in this case, there is one clear winner. Both can be charged from the wall and played simultaneously, but only one can actually connect to your TV and become a full-fledged console. Vita has the ability through another peripheral through the PS TV, but technically that is not the Vita itself. Granted, Vita has the ability to do the opposite and take the PS4 console on the go, but that requires a strong Wi-Fi connection. And even then, playing through SharePlay comes with the sacrifice of lag. Whereas with the Switch, you pretty much put it in the dock and you play it on your TV, and when you want to go back out in the real world, you simply take out the Switch and instantly play where you left off. Now, some of you will be thinking, obviously that's not fair. That's what the thing was built for. And yes, like I said, this didn't seem fair from a distance, but from the get-go, it was a close race. But when all said and done, the fact that the Switch is able to do this instantly pretty much makes this console revolutionary. And well, in this case, the point goes to Switch, which makes the overall winner the Nintendo Switch. Well, and that's the video. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I freaking love the PS Vita, and in many ways this is my favorite handheld system. Although that is more for personal reasons, but regardless, I still love this thing. But yes, having said all that, the Nintendo Switch still wins because, well, it is newer, but also it's made by Nintendo. And let's not get it twisted, Nintendo is the king of handhelds for a reason. The DS series, the Game Boy series, hell, even in the 80s, they were killing it with the Game & Watch series. So yeah, Nintendo, you pretty much have the whole handheld market on lock. And even though nowadays you're actually the more powerful system, because back in the old days you would be wiping the floor with a much more powerful system, like Game Gear and the PSP. But in this case, it's kind of evening out because you are also the weakest console, yet you're the most powerful handheld. Nintendo Switch is a weird creature, but regardless, I love it. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole video, right? Yeah, pretty much it. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later.